Pretty close. Survivor specialist Phil and Alexa are back with our episode 12 recap for Survivor David versus Goliath. And Christian went home. After everything I said all season about Christian's edit being so big that there's no possible way he goes home, he's gone. And we are now at final 6 with Allison, Angelina, Kara, Mike, Davie, and Nick. And Nick I been calling since day one. The other 5, I'm pretty surprised. I figured 1 or 2 of them would be in there, but Alexa and I were talking. Our last people since Elizabeth went home, it was John, Dan, Alec, Carl, Gabby, Christian. That's wild. That's a really
strong
crazy,
jury.
Yeah, that's a really crazy 12th through 7th. And nothing against the 6 who made the final 6. I just wasn't expecting it. Now, I was saying to Alexa, this is the 2nd year in a row. Our 7th place finisher had a really, really good edit, one of the strongest of the season. Last year it was Kellen, and Kellen went home right before the finale, and I was assuming she would make it, and Sebastian would end up going home, and I was wrong. But yeah, I'm curious because I know that Christian is such a fan favorite that I'm wondering what the reactions of the general Survivor population is going to be like that he went home right before the finale, and who the rooting interest is now going to be. Because I got curse words from my mom tonight, and my dad said that sucks. And I know that my sister will have the same feeling, and I know that a lot of people that I talk to who do watch Survivor were Christian fans, not necessarily that they thought he was going to win, just that they would like to see him in the finale. So I'm curious to see who the rooting interest is now when you have a whole week to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Christian was not only the fan favorite, but he felt like buying away the fan favorite, not just of this episode, but of this whole season. He was the entire face of the season. And I think I'd have the same reaction. I'm going to text my cousins, my mom, the whole thing, and they're all going to say, Christian was my favorite. And I think everyone feels favorably about most of the people remaining, but there's no clear-cut obvious favorite. And Nick had a really weird episode.
Bad episode tonight,
yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll call it how it is. He had a pretty bad episode. And Phil and I were talking before we were live, we couldn't figure out who voted who and why they voted for who. And so this was a really weird breakout, but this is definitely going to be, this is an odd final 6. And I remember reading one of the comments on our predictions podcast for this episode, and someone was saying, you two are crazy for not thinking Christian is going home because Christian is so big that he deserves his own episode. It would be so weird if Christian goes out in the final 5 because it's so rushed at that point. The finale is so tight and so rushed. But what's so odd about this is Christian could have had his whole episode revolve around him, and he was an afterthought. Again, I thought Allison was going to go home for the 15th time, and Mike is desperately walking around the beach looking for someone to play with him to get rid of Christian, and no one wants to hang out with him. And then Angelina and Kara and Allison vote for Christian, and Mike doesn't. So we'll break it. Yeah, we'll break this down, but this was odd.
Nick got played hard tonight, and so this is where I started off the Nick. Nick Fake Idol is brilliant. Big fan because that's where Nick's. He's a big fan because that's where Ben's was. So that's where Ben's was hidden back in.
I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah. Great idea, perfectly executed. He just acts like, oh my god, I just found this. So smart. He's surrounded by people who all believed him. Davie, good for you not believing it, continuing to look for the idol.
Nick smart, Davie smarter.
But now, that arc of the whole episode, it was look at all the power he has to, oh my god, what did you just do? You just butchered your game by doing the fake idol at the end, having that really awkward moment, playing your real idol, voting out Christian, agreeing with Nick, and realizing they all lied to you because you didn't get a single vote. And I thought that was really telling, is how close Nick really does feel with Mike. And if he was this hurt over the Christian one, how hurt is he going to be over Mike? Mike lied straight to his face, and Nick ate it up in 2 seconds. And it's not really that much of a lie because Davie was originally going for Nick. But when Mike said it, Nick just ate it. He said, okay, that's what's happening. All that Nick had to do was vote with Davie and Christian to vote out Allison, which is who he really wanted to go home this week.
I feel like he's wanted Allison gone for a while. And it was his idea originally. From what we were shown, he was like, it's got to be Allison. It's got to be Allison. And at this point, is Allison the rooting interest of the generic fan base? I guess so. Or Davie. I mean, I guess Davie's got to be the easy answer here. But yeah, and then that was a really awkward moment at Tribal Council. And we can talk about this more, but so Nick walks up, plays that fake idol, and doesn't really say anything. He just says, like, take this, Jeff. And then Davie either calls him out accidentally or on purpose. I'm not really sure. And he says, who are you playing it for? And then Nick gets super awkward. And that's where I'm not sure where the rules are. Like, how deep into a fake idol can you go? Can you pretend you're playing a fake idol for yourself and actually say it out loud? That I don't know. But I think Nick got caught in that and was like, oh, I'm trying to read the room. And you see Allison go like, oh, God. And then Nick plays it. So I guess Allison, who did Allison vote for? Davie. I don't really know like what anyone's reaction to anything meant. I really need to rewatch this.
He was going to play for Christian in a situation like that because they all knew Nick wasn't getting any votes. But at the same time, I think you're just like, wait, this guy just lied to us the entire day, telling us that he had this idol that he didn't actually have, that he planned that whole thing out. And now you want to talk about making yourself a threat. You sat there, you lied to everybody, and then you called yourself out at Tribal saying that's fake. And all he had to do was sit there quietly. But Mike got in his head very easily, which I'm really surprised at. And I think that Nick, his game is losing because I think he's starting to lose it. I think he's mentally exhausted. I think he's looking too far ahead. He's outthinking himself. And he has shot himself in the foot tonight. I thought Nick was a pretty clear winner of this season before this episode. And now after watching tonight, I might almost be on this conspiracy theory that Alex spoiled the winner, or I could just be on the train of Davie's going to somehow pull this out. Because for all that it's worth, I still don't see Mike, Angelina, or Allison winning. Mike tonight even said, Allison is so easy to beat at the end. That's the first time we've heard that. But that's pretty telling because why is Nick so worried about Allison? Because she's going to win immunity challenges? Like Mike was right. Christian is the bigger threat. But even like Christian said tonight, why am I such a big threat? Like, he didn't even understand. And I know a lot of people have been saying that, and this has been a very heavily fan favorite edit. But what has Christian done that was so great on this season that he's going to win hands down no matter who he sits against? You know, are they just worried that he's going to win because he's that likable? Well, you've made moves. Like, make it happen. I
think you hit the nail on the head with that. And we haven't talked about this too much, but I've seen a lot of comments about it, not just on our podcast, but I've heard like other people talk about this. Christian had to be told multiple times that votes were coming his way. Christian was going to win because people liked him. Allison would win because people like her. Christian found idols. Christian won individual immunities. Christian would have been an extremely satisfying and wonderful winner. I want to put that out there. But to your point, Christian needed a lot of help. He wouldn't have been there without Gabby. He wouldn't have been there without Nick. Davie saved him. Nick saved him. Alex saved him. Like all of these people have saved him. And I think people forget that. And when you're in the game, like, I mean, I guess I can't think about when I'm in the game. I can only think of it like from my couch. But Mike was like, guys, he's got to go. And to your point, like Allison would win because people like her. I feel like any move that could have been Allison's, it has been portrayed as somebody else's. Allison won an individual immunity, but at this point, like has it been a different person to win every single
I think so.
individual immunity, which is probably the first time it's ever happened because Mike won this week. I think everyone except for
at 84 years old.
That was hilarious. That was very funny. So I guess Allison has wit. That's a good reason to win. Yeah, I think everyone except for Angelina and Nick have won individual immunities. So I don't think Nick's won yet. Okay. So he could now. But
here's my thing too, though, is when you're looking at this from a who's going to possibly win the game, I think that the most unlikely final three is it's Mike, Angelina, Allison. I think that's the most unlikely. Because who's your winner from that group?
What was that group?
Mike, Angelina, and Allison. Like, who's your winner there? You know what I mean? Like, I guess Allison, but we haven't seen enough of it. And Mike's saying tonight that anyone can beat her. And then Mike, maybe. I mean, Mike made some good moves tonight. And Mike's really, he's still playing the game. But maybe Angelina, she's getting 0 votes in the final 3. Yeah. I mean, that is just written in stone at this point. Her, like, I don't want to use this word because I feel like it's a mean word, but like her, like, groveling and being like, remember when I gave up my immunity challenge chance?
It's an okay word.
Rice? I'm like,
I feel like someone said that on the episode, so I feel like that's okay for you to say.
Yeah, it's like a mean way to explain it because it's like so beggy and like, I don't know, like, She's another one. I feel like Angelina is going to watch this back and just be like, why was I like that half the time? Because I think that she could play so much better of a game than she's playing. I think she thinks she's smarter than she is, which is a big mistake by a lot of people who are incredibly smart, is you get out there and you think that you're the smartest person because you're used to being the smartest person. And I'm not saying she's probably the smartest person on that island and probably has been since day one. But that doesn't mean you have the street smarts or the social intelligence or anything else like that as everybody else. And I think that that's showing now where, tonight when Davie picks Nick and says, yeah, you took me on the family visit. And Angelina's like, we both did that. And like, Davie's like, nah, that was Nick. Like, I'm going to also take, Kara, what are you doing? Get over here, girl. So I think that that's very telling. And, brilliant move by Davie to take Nick, because that means Nick can't look for the idol. And since Davie had a suspicion that it wasn't real, great move. You have to take him and you have to send Christian back to camp and tell Christian, hey, go find it yourself.
I think Davie's got to be the clear winner out of this group. Davie is playing such an incredible game, and I think it's under the radar to us, but I think it's not so under the radar as like Devin was in Heroes Heal Us. There's so many people say Devin would have won, but I think a lot of players on the season wouldn't have voted for him. Yeah. So fans, we're right a lot of times, but not always.
Yeah.
And I say us as collective fans. Like Devin, I think was so under the radar. Davie is appearing under the radar, but shouldn't. So I think that's the best way it could go, because when Davie gets up there, if Davie gets up there at the final tribal council, he will have so many things. He will say, I saved this person, that person, this person. I had 2 idols. He had 2 votes go his way. He wasn't going to go home anyways, but 2 votes out of 7, that's still tight.
And it looks good to the jury still, because that looks like a safety play of they were splitting the votes between Christian and Davie. And he was worried Christian had an idol, so he played his idol. So it still looks good to the jury right there, because they're like, oh, Davie might have thought that Christian plays his. They're going to re-vote. Every vote's going to go to Davie. Allison was never really in danger because, once again, Christian and Davie are the only ones who actually voted for Allison. So this still looks like a good idol play for Davie, despite the fact that he did waste it. So I think Davie is playing I've been saying this all along, one of the best under the radar games of all time ever in the history of the game. But it just keeps coming back to it's 4-2 now, 4-2 Goliath. Nick doesn't have an idol. Davie doesn't have an idol. Both of them are clearly the biggest threats to win this game. Clearly. And I think everybody has to see that by now. I mean, that's why Davie was gunning for Nick, and Mike's sitting there going, I can't believe they're doing this. But one of them has to win the immunity at Final 5, or convince everybody that Kara needs to go at 6 or Allison needs to go at 6, because that's the only way that one of them is making it to the Final 3. I mean, they have hard paths now, although I will say that what Nick did tonight makes him a lot more beatable than Davie, which also probably makes it more likely that Nick gets to Final 3 than Davie does.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. The lines have been blurred for so long. You haven't thought about this David versus Goliath breakout in a couple episodes, but there's only 2 Davids left, and I think they're, like you just said, they're the 2 biggest threats. And I think Mike's been preaching this the whole time. The main people who have wanted to get rid of Allison are not Goliaths. So Allison, I feel like, takes a step back. I don't know if I think she could have a fairly decent shot at getting to the final tribal, because the only people who wanted to get rid of her are people who have been going home. So Allison's threat level really decreases for me. Kara, I don't know where to put her. This is going to be like a good predictions, but I really don't know what to do with Kara. She could win, or she gets 0 votes, or she goes home at number 6. I have no idea what to do with her.
She can join my Michelle Fitzgerald Winners Club. Like, she can do where it's just like, how, what, who?
I feel like, call me crazy, I feel like Kara would be more confusing than Michelle.
I think Kara would be more confusing than Michelle because of how big the other characters were on here. And I don't want to take your words from you, but if you want to say what you texted me, and then we can get into that, because I think that's what makes her more confusing, is because Michelle was only up against up against Aubrey. Nobody else really on that season, you were sitting there going, oh, they're going to win the game. Nobody was worried about Ty. Nobody was worried about Jason. Nobody was worried about Scott Pollard. Nobody was obviously worried about Joe DeCampo. So that's why Michelle's is less confusing, but Kara's would be very confusing because of everybody else who's on this season with her. She's like, and this is nothing against Kara. This is just how good this cast was. Kara might be the 10th biggest personality to make the merge. And that's not her fault. That's just the way it's going.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I I had something to say about Michelle's. Oh, I guess Michelle's win. Confusing is really the wrong word, and I know all the Michelle people are going to get really mad at me. I'm a huge Michelle fan. For everyone who is listening and feels like trolling me,
otherwise you get
just so everyone is a pro Michelle podcast in all senses of the phrase pro Michelle. But when I was watching that finale, I wasn't flabbergasted that I wasn't flabbergasted when she won. People were so blindsided by that. That was surprising, but not earth-shattering.
And that's why you're allowed to be on this podcast, because I called it, said she'd win 5-4, and then
exactly, and here we are. What did I text you that the words you're taking
the week final 6?
Oh, quotes on the week.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
Okay, so Phil and I were texting, as we often do in between the episode and us going live, and I said, and to anyone in the final 6, this is you guys are an amazing final 6. This is not an opinion. This is strictly based on looking at this cast from what production has told me about you guys. This is a quote unquote weaker final 6 than what could have been. Right when we started this stream, whatever the hell we're doing, Phil listed out everyone who's on the jury, and that group, that's a wild jury to a. What's the word I'm looking for, Phil? I don't know. I feel like I'm insulting them when I don't want to.
No, because it's not. Okay, here's what it comes down to. Christian and Gabby both did not make the finale. That's
or John,
shocking.
Or Dan, or Elizabeth. Yeah.
Exactly. Or Carl, who had his moments, or Alec, who I honestly still think is the biggest gap on the season, is when Alec left, you felt it. But when you look at this with Christian and Gabby not making it, with how big their edits were, how they were in it together in the trenches from day one with the Jessica boot, and then they go over to Green Tribe, and he's a brochacho, and Gabby's upset, and they work together and get all the way there, and Gabby goes to make her move to get rid of Christian, doesn't work out, and then it's okay, now Christian's set up, and then Christian goes home the next week, and you're like, wait a second. So now you have Allison, you have Cara, you have Mike and Angelina, and even Davie for some of this season hasn't always been there. So other than Nick, you don't have one of the 5 biggest personalities. Wait, let me rephrase that. Other than Nick,
I know people were not trying to insult. We just can't phrase this.
Christian, Gabby, Alec, in my opinion, all much bigger personalities than any of the other people in the final 6. And I mean that in terms of from what we've seen in the edit, we have gotten so much more from those 3 than we did from anybody other than Nick in the final 6. So that's where this week comes in, because every one of these players is playing insane, as we saw tonight, as we've seen with all the idol plays, as we've seen with all the advantages being played, as we've seen with the numbers going back and forth so many times, and Mike saying, literally, it is voting blocks. And it's true. It is voting blocks this season, as much as I hated that back in Second Chance. But it's so true, because it's just bouncing back and forth. Whoever wants to go home. But when you look at who it could have been, it just feels like we're missing something right now. That's the only – we don't have – last year's final 6, it was Wendell, Dom, Donathan – so even though Kellen went home, you had Wendell and Dom, you had Donathan, and yet Angelina, or Angela, I'm calling her Angelina now, but Angela and Sebastian were a little bit lower. Laurel had her moments, but we don't have, let's say Dom was the biggest personality and that's your Nick. We don't have a Wendell and we don't have a Donathan right now, which is where it's kind of surprising. And that's nothing against this group, because I think Davie would be a great winner. I think Nick is a great winner. I think that Cara would be a really surprising winner, and somebody who, if you went back and watched her game, you'd probably really enjoy. Sorry, Angelina, but I don't see you winning, and Allison, I really don't see winning. But Mike's plan is clearly to go to the end with Allison and Angelina, and he's making it work right now. And if he gets there with them, that's a hard thing to not argue. But even Mike White, who is a storyteller and an actor, not having as big of an edit as I would have anticipated coming into the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the people who are tweeting and chatting, this is not because they aren't our favorites. I have been a loud Allison fan since before the season started. So that's not true, before anyone says that. But you're right. Would you have thought that Mike White would not only be in the final 6, but would quietly be in the final 6? And this, again, kind of was his episode, but it didn't feel like it. This, again, Davie kind of took it from him, and Nick idol blunder kind of took it from him. When Mike has been the narrator of the season the entire time, but you kind of forget he's there sometimes.
Yeah, and for anybody, I mean, Gamer Girl just tweeted us. Are you saying that this Final Six is worse than the Thailand Final Four? No, this is probably one of the.
This is
best
a great
groups.
Final Six.
Yeah, this is probably one of the best groups of finale players to ever make the finale. Like, this is probably one of the best Final Six. Is in the entire history of the show, and probably we'd have to go back and actually look at the groups of finale players, but definitely this is a better group than last year's group. I really believe that, even though I just said that Wendell and Donovan aren't there, you only have one huge person, but I like this group so much more than a lot of other groups. It's just when you look at who you might have thought it was going to be, who the edit was kind of leading you towards, who were the biggest characters all season long, the stories that we were really focused on, Gabby and Christian. That is a story that was so heavily played, and it's over before the finale. Mm-hmm. That's like even Nick and Christian. That is now over before the finale. I wanted the rise and fall of the Mason-Dixon to end in the finale. That was a day, 6 storyline. Like, so that's where it comes. That's what I'm saying is it's not weak in the sense that the characters aren't deserving or that it's a bad Final Six. It's weak, like you said, with huge quotes because of what it could have been.
Yeah, you're right about the storylines. I think that's kind of what I was missing in my argument. And I guess it's so poetic that Christian and Gabby go one after another. But you're right, like this Christian and Nick relationship, it died, and it died a couple weeks ago, and it never came back. And this, I mean, Christian didn't really go home because of Nick. I'm gonna need you to explain how this voting breakout went because
it was Mike White. Mike White's probably. I mean, Davie and Mike White are in competition for MVP of this episode because it was Mike White
convinced Angelina and Kara. How did he convince? Well, Mike and Angelina. Okay, they're together. But why did only Kara do this and not? Yeah, talk me through this.
Because Davie decided he was no longer voting for Nick, and now he's going to vote for Allison.
Why did he do that again?
He didn't want to vote for Nick because Nick was no longer lying to him. Remember, now it was like, oh, he told me about the idol and all that.
Yeah, so okay.
I think Kara says, wait, I don't want to vote out Allison. I'd rather keep Allison around. I can beat Allison. Yeah. So let's get rid of Christian. That makes sense. But this was Mike White's big move because Mike White sat down with Nick and said, Christian's coming for you. And that's why Nick ended up voting for Christian instead of voting for Allison. And that's why he looked like such an ass out there pulling out his idol. And pulling out the fake one and then pulling out the real one. Mike really blew Nick's game up tonight. And Davie had a great episode, which we could talk more about. I like that they brought back the Chris Noble thing. But this was, I have to say, Mike White is the MVP of tonight's episode. Like, I think for sure.
Mm-hmm. And to further that point, I thought it was nuts that no one brought up Christian before Mike did. Because, like, Gabby loved Gabby's move, but Gabby was not doing anything insane by saying Christian needs to get out. Everyone's been wanting Christian to go. And then all of a sudden, his biggest cheerleader is gone and no one wants to get rid of him. Christian is still a threat to win. So I thought it was nuts that no one wanted to get rid of him. I thought, and maybe they were, appropriately cutting this, but he goes to Allison, he goes to Kara, and I think he goes to Nick. And he's like, what about Christian? And they're like, no thanks. Like, yeah. What do you mean you don't want to get Christian? Allison's voted for Christian 50 times.
Yeah. I know.
I thought that was really crazy. But I mean, it obviously ended up working out. And again, they probably did that just to draw us away from it. But I thought it was really nuts that all of a sudden people didn't care about voting out Christian.
Yeah, and so the way the votes broke down tonight was Mike and Allison voted Davie, Nick, Kara, and Angelina voted Christian, and then Christian and Davie voted for Allison. So it was on the beach. It was actually what he said. He said, Davie's trying to vote you out. And then Nick was like, whoa, I'm shocked. What is going on with that? But that put in Nick's head that Davie and Christian were working together. That's why.
And he bought that in a minute.
Yeah, because I think everybody's underestimating Davie. And I think Davie could win the game. Maybe Davie is your Wendell of the season, where he's the really nice guy that nobody's looking at as the ultimate threat because they're always scared somebody else is the threat. And they don't know when to get rid of him. And then they're going to end up being like, oh, crap, he just won our season. But when I look at this, I think he goes for Christian because he's more scared of Christian, and he shouldn't be more scared of Christian because Davie, I thought Davie was going to play his idol for Christian just so he could be like, hey, man, now if you sit next to me, they can't possibly vote for you to win. They can't because I have now saved you twice.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know what, but Davie voted for Allison.
Yeah, him and Christian voted together to vote for Allison.
Okay. But he like, I felt recently like Davie has had a lot of allegiance to Christian, a lot more than I would have expected. Davie's been very quick, at least this episode, to throw Nick under the bus and want to get him out. So I don't really know where Davie's allegiance is live, which is really good for Davie, because the whole time I thought he was like super tight with Nick, and now he's been wanting to get rid of Nick for a while.
Well, and Davie said he brought Kara because she's his friend, and Nick because that's his frenemy. Mm-hmm. And so
I like that.
Kara and Christian, I think, is who he felt closest to. Kara's playing her own game, obviously. She's doing her thing, and getting rid of Christian's the smart move for her tonight. I think Davie, though, was probably, well, he's still in the game, but he was probably the only person who could beat Christian at the final three. Maybe Nick, but I think Davie realized he could beat Christian. Because he gets to final three against Christian, he can just sit there and say, this is everything I did to make sure this guy got here. I am the reason he's sitting here. And he can make that argument a lot more than Gabby could have made that argument, because Davie still played his own game, played idols for him. Gabby wasn't doing that. So I think that's why Davie wanted to keep Christian around. One, because he was a threat, so people would always look at him before they would look at Davie. But then when they got to final three, he could actually have a really great story as to why he deserved to beat Christian at final three.
Yeah, that's a good point. He doesn't have as good of a story against Nick. But now I think you're right. Nick dropped a couple pegs. And I think I was watching that the jury walk in and they cut to Nick looking at him, which made me think of this. I don't know who on the jury feels particularly tied to Nick. I think as a viewer, it's very obvious that Nick could be the big winner here. But what relationship does Nick have with John, Dan, Alec? Like, I don't like those three. I don't really know. I think Gabby was never really with Nick. So I don't know. I think as a viewer, it's very clear that Nick could win. But when we break down this jury, which we'll do this weekend, I don't really know who feels much allegiance to him.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting because we'll break it down. We'll do each final three. We probably won't focus too much on Mike, Angelina, and Allison because, that's probably not going to happen. But we won't focus too much on that one. We'll break down like the bigger final threes, the ones that actually have a shot probably of happening. And when you start to do that, you start to look at who's everybody going to vote for. And that's when you start to realize, like, who actually, like, the way I always do it is I just write down who's on the jury and I rank all 6 people left in the game who they would vote for in the order that they would vote for them. And I don't know how many people are going to have Nick as their number one person going into this final 6. I really don't. Christian would have been my only choice. And now Nick was gunning for Christian for week after week after week. He's not going to vote for him anymore. Maybe in a situation where it's him, Mike, and Angelina. Yeah, okay, he votes for Nick. But that's because, like, he's Christian's 4 and Mike is Christian's 5 and Angelina is Christian's 6. You know what I mean? So that's how I feel.
Yeah. I don't know. This is a really cool final 6. I really like, and this is probably me like being an apologist for calling it a big quotes week final 6 for people who want to go backwards 20 minutes. I love not knowing who's going to win. I couldn't stand predicting this Ghost Island one because it's going to be Dom or Wendell, which, to your point, you brought this up a lot. We don't know who it's going to be, Dom or Wendell. But for this, I have not a clue who's going to win this. Davie could win. Nick could win. Allison or Kara could pull it out. If Angelina wins, like, this is the best season ever because that is just, like, absolutely absurd.
Angelina, I mean, look, I've been wrong a lot this season, and Gabby was my winner pick. My whole fantasy team is officially gone before the finale. I don't even have anybody in the finale. But Angelina's not winning. I mean, everything that is being said has just been negative, and her getting mad after Nick didn't take her, or I mean, after Davie didn't take her, nobody felt bad for her. No one cared. Yeah,
they always just cut to Allison like rolling her eyes.
Yeah, it's like, so what? And Gabby said it in her exit press where she said, like, somebody would have given up immunity. Was it her who said that, or was it Carla who said that? One of them said somebody would have given up immunity. It's Survivor, and for Gabby to call Angelina polished, that's definitely not a compliment. So I think that I mean, I'm loving it. I mean, I love all of this. It's crazy that this is your final 6, and I don't have a problem with it because I love Survivor. So I'll just sit down, I'll watch it no matter who's there. I don't care who the fan favorite is. Very rarely do I agree. I mean, that's just, Alec was my favorite on this whole season. season. Like, Alec, where are you?
Alec is not to be found.
Yeah, Alec is not to be found.
Yeah.
But, so I don't really care who the fan favorite was. I liked the shocking moment. And that's why, not to keep on beating the horse here, but with Michelle beating Aubrey, that is such a great moment to me in the history of Survivor because it just comes out of nowhere. And it's like, whoa, you can still shock me. That's awesome. And
it can still shock us.
This final 6 is pretty shocking. And sure, we'll get people who are saying, no, this was obvious. This is so easy. And it's what spoilers did you read? Like, congratulations. Our Survivor spoilers does exist. You're the best.
And I'm pretty sure they've been pretty darn wrong.
Have they? I have no idea. So all I know is that right now I'm sitting here going, wow, that's your final 6. Who's going to pull this out at the end? Because a couple weeks ago I wouldn't have said Nick, but when we had Wendell on this podcast, he kept saying Davie's going to win. Davie's going to win. And I'm watching it going into this now, and I'm like, let's go. Let's get the Blurred of the Wild Frontier out here. Let's get him to win it.
His when they do that winner montage and it's they do all those quotes that are like, I think I got this. Like Davie's quote for that, if he wins, is going to be awesome. It's going to be so good. Yeah. For people who say Survivor can't shock us anymore, where were you 6 months ago when I was screaming on my couch when there was a tie? Survivor can still shock us. Okay, I feel like we've beaten this dead horse for a while. So I have a idol rules question, and we kind of talked about this. So Nick plays his fake idol. I don't know exactly what he said when he played it, but when he came back, Davie said, who are you playing it for? And Nick was obviously like unsure of what to do. Could Nick say, I'm playing it for me, and Jeff rolls with it, or does Jeff shut him down and say this is fake? Like, where's the line?
Did you notice tonight that he didn't say this is a hidden immunity idol?
No. See, that was the thing. I missed something.
So Nick didn't say this is a hidden immunity idol. He said, I found this on the beach.
He said I found it on the raft. Yes.
Yeah. So by saying I found this on the raft, he's not announcing that this is a hidden immunity idol. So Jeff's not saying to him, this is or is not a hidden immunity idol because he just handed it to Jeff. Like Jeff could have just been like, what?
Did Jeff say anything?
Jeff didn't say anything.
Okay.
Jeff didn't say anything. So Jeff could have just been like, do you want to throw this out? Like, what do you want? What is this? Because he didn't say I found this and like I'm playing this for me. He just said I found this at the raft. So he didn't say it was an idol. He didn't say who he was playing it for, which pretty much means Jeff's standing there holding something that day. Like you could walk up to Jeff and hand him a rock, and I'm sure Jeff would stand there with the rock and go,
"This is a rock."
Yeah, like what do you want me to do with this now? So
I guess when does Jeff shut it down?
Well, I mean, probably when Nick would have sat back down. Because that's when Davie said, well, who are you playing that for? And then Nick was like, and he kept standing there, and Jeff's just standing there going, this is great, cool. Cameras are rolling,
Davie did
right?
call him out because Davie knew it was fake. Yeah. Oh, that's so freaking smart. God, he had a good episode.
Yeah, and what happens is by doing that, it makes Nick look so stupid because Nick's plan that he thought was a good plan clearly was not a good plan anymore. And now Nick's like, oh, crap, what did I just do? And he goes and he's like, I'm going to play my idol. And he gets lied to by Mike, which, by the way, we didn't talk about this, but Mike and Allison
what did they do? See, I blacked out.
But Allison went to Mike to tell Mike that the plan was for Nick to get votes. And then that's how Nick ended up finding out that Davie was gunning for him. So Allison, who they thought would be in their 4 of Christian, Davie, Allison, and Kara, actually is closer to Mike. And what I think is really interesting right now is you're seeing Mike and Allison both want the same final 3. And I'm curious who would actually win in that situation because they both want it. They're both pushing for Mike, Allison, Angelina. That's what they both want at the end.
So, I mean, we said a couple minutes ago it was unlikely, but if 2 people want it, or 3 people, I mean, Angelina probably wants it too, that could happen because there's none of those 3 think they're the weak link, which is usually one person who's like, no, like they're going to team up against me or like they could definitely beat me. Who wins in that final 3? In my head, I think Allison. Call me super biased. Please tell me because I probably am, but I think Allison wins that. But I think Mike thinks he can win that, and Angelina thinks she can win that. Allison thinks she can win that. So that's a final 3 where all of them are confident, which is why it very well could happen. And
that's one, I mean, we'll talk about it, but that's one that I see ending 6-4. Allison or Mike pulling out 6-4, it's a close one. But I don't think that final 3 happens. And to go a little bit ahead, what I think will end up happening next week is because Davie said that him and Kara are friends, because we haven't heard much about who each of their friends are yet, that is a big thing to me. And I think Nick now feels, wait, Mike just lied to me. He was my rock star. He was my guy. And he just lied to me saying that they were gunning for me and got me to play my idol. I think the three of them team up because they don't have a choice. I think what you're going to end up seeing happen is Allison go in this first boot, and then somehow it's going to either flop back where one of the bigger threats is going to go, because then all of a sudden it becomes a battle of can we get to the end with Mike and Angelina. Like, I think that that's going to be something that happens here, because who else is Nick going to turn to? He doesn't have a choice. And if Davie and Kara really are teamed up, they need to split up what the final three is going to be, because I think Kara does realize that she's number 4 in that group, despite her still voting out Christian tonight.
Yeah, I think Kara knows she's not a part of that final 4. And final 3. She and Davie, we'd been wondering, or at least I'd been wondering for a while, like, is their relationship with Kara and Davie? There's clearly something there. And I think, like you said, both of them, they're kind of spinning around because there aren't many people to turn to now. And Kara and Allison seem to have a bit of a thing, but I think Kara and Davie are tighter than we're being led to believe. And it could be like a Kara, Davie, Allison, which I never thought would happen, final 3.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. See, that's why this is a great final 6. We have no idea what's going to happen. Yeah,
exactly. It's just really
okay.
Surprising.
What else? So I was really wondering about that fake idol thing. The Chris Noble Ghost Island came back.
I loved it. I think that's great. I like it better actually at Final 7 than I did at Final 12 or 13, because at Final 7 your vote is so valuable.
Yeah,
you
take that conservative approach. You got to do what Davie did.
I agree with what Davie did here. You have immunity at Final 7. Try to win it at Final 6 and Final 5. Try to find another idol at some point. You've had a good luck finding them, so try to find one more. Try to win one challenge, and go to Final 4. And if you have to make fire, you have to make fire. But you have to take the conservative approach here, because to not have a vote at Final 7 is insane. To not have a vote at Final 12 is like, we've seen a lot of these merge boots. It's like 11-1 or something like that. But at Final 7, you need that vote because it's such a big moment. I mean, that could be a turning point.
Yeah, and that was a really well edited scene. They gave him the Christian treatment where he's just like blabbing about what he could do, and good thing he did, because he got that cool, like, strategic. He brought up pretty much everyone's names, like, dub moment. And then you see him having a more personal moment where he's praying, and then they cut to the fire, and he's like, "Give me a sign." Fire moves away, and he doesn't do it, and it worked out for him. So I thought that was just a very well done scene.
Yeah, exactly. I like the whole, God, give me a sign. Blows that way.
Right, get out of here.
Bye. That's all right. Getting out of here. Goodbye. So yeah, I think that that was smart of him, though. You can't risk a vote there, especially if you're trying to make a big move on somebody like Nick. You need to have your vote. You have to. So yeah, I thought that was good of him. I hope they keep continuing to bring this back. This is much more interesting than anything else. And honestly, I wouldn't even be opposed if at some point they say you don't have an immunity idol. You can risk your vote to get an immunity idol, and then you can continue to risk your vote to get it to last longer. I would not be opposed to that, because why should you get an easy idol?
I would like that so much more. You took the words out of my mouth, because as you know, and I think you feel the same way, I can't stand easy idols. That makes you wager it, and maybe this should only happen on Ghost Island, but I would have really liked that, but it still worked out. What else have we covered? We covered Davie winning the award. We covered Angelina pleading her case. Angelina literally said, "I'm making a big old pot of revenge rice." And if that wasn't hashtagged, nothing is ever going to be hashtagged. Revenge rice would have been perfect.
I know. Especially, what is it? Is it Gordon or is it Dalton who always says, "Give me another scoop of the crispy" or something? He always says that.
I don't know.
So it should have been, "Give me another scoop of revenge rice," because they always say. I think it's Dalton Ross. He always says, "Come back next week for another scoop of the crispy."
What's the crispy?
The crispy rice from Redemption Island. Philip Shepard would always say he liked the crispy rice because it was better.
I just block out everything that Philip Shepard.
You're missing out on some gold, Alexa.
I'm sure I am.
It's so much fun to rewatch that season and know that, like, on
Boston Robbins.
And to know that on 26 he's really not that bad. Also, I wanted to point out Mike's fingernails were absolutely repulsive. Those were disgusting. They were black. It was awful. They were so dirty. Like somebody go like rub sand or something under those. Go get some water in there. They were black.
Isn't that what they do? Like you always see them doing their hair and their face, like exfoliating. You would think that would also happen with their nails.
They like zoomed in on his fingers and they were disgusting.
Yeah,
I also wanted to say,
his hair is getting quite long. His beard.
Yeah. And then I wanted to say too, Will and I did this challenge against each other at the EW Pop Fest, and Will beat me. Handle on the bottom.
Oh, the
immunity challenge.
The ball holding.
Yeah, the ball holding.
We got to talk about
where Jeff had the line balls separating or what is it? I can't read my own.
I think Kara grabbed her balls at one point.
Yeah, and it's balls separating or smacking together. Both are uncomfortable or an uncomfortable feeling.
He said, "Grab your ball,"
and then he says, "In this challenge." Like he actually says he has that whole line, and I'm sorry I can't read my own handwriting because I was writing it like pretty much laying down. But yeah, he actually says balls separating or smacking together both make you uncomfortable in this challenge. Like he paused. He actually paused. Like he knew that was making the edit. He's just not obnoxious.
I can't. I call me a child. I texted Phil I could never do this challenge. I would laugh as soon as I made eye contact with Jeff. Jeff loves this challenge, and people can say it's annoying. I have plenty of criticism for Jeff, but I love when he does this. I think it's the funniest thing. So I would be all Jonathan Penner on him. I'd be screaming at him thinking he's so annoying. But, oh, my God, Jeff has just gotten more and more egregious with the ball references.
Because you're allowed to say whatever you want on TV now. And Jeff's getting to that point where, no offense to Jeff, but he's like now in that old people demographic where like he thinks he can say whatever he wants,
Someone said Davie's balls dropped at the same time.
Yeah, there was something like that. But
yeah, you're right. He's probably just like, F this. I've done 37 seasons. I'm getting egregious with the ball comments.
But I will say, me and Will, I fell out when there was 2 balls on. So that's when I dropped.
How long was that? Like I don't have a good perception of how long this challenge usually takes.
I couldn't do it that long. I was like Allison. I was just shaking the whole time. I have no balance and
it's also like you need small
jeans.
feet for that one. Oh
yeah, and I was also wearing jeans and like Vans. So like how good was my life going at that point?
It was going great.
There was nothing really good happening there. And Will was like all decked out in his like, basketball shorts and his running sneakers that had the nice little indent. And, he's like, this is so easy. He wasn't actually dressed like that, but I just want to dress Will up as a tool if I can. Well,
he's a tool no matter what. I'm sorry to hear that he beat you. He probably talks about a lot.
No, he's good at random stupid stuff. It's his life where he struggles. But
that's all he's got.
Where's Will? Is he listening?
Hi, Will.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I mean, yeah, I don't really have much more. I mean, we're at the final 6. I'm really shocked Christian's not in this finale. Much more shocked than I was about Kellen not being in the finale last year, because at least there were other people, and Kellen I figured wasn't going to win. But Christian was somebody who I thought still had a chance to win the game. He will be back at some point, no doubt, 100%. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a bummer, though, that him and Gabby will probably play on the same season again, and I wonder if that's going to hurt both of them, because they're both so damn likable.
I hope not. I wouldn't want them to play on the same season. I don't love when like power couples come back on the same season.
I don't like it either.
I mean, James and Amanda, I guess that was different, but I feel like it puts you at a bit of at least now it puts you at a bit of a disadvantage.
Well, and the difference too with James and Amanda is they were 2 of the biggest heroes in Survivor history at that time, which is mind-blowing if you go and you're like, Amanda was one of the biggest heroes in Survivor history. But anyway, like they were 2 of the biggest fan favorites at that time. And when they were going for fans versus favorites, there was no way you were doing a season without the 2 of them. I mean, that would be mind-blowing. I mean, look, Parvati was on there, and Parvati was not a fan favorite her first season. Like that's just not true. So she was on there, and you had like Eliza, who, when you're saying favorite, really? I mean, great TV, absolutely. A favorite? I don't know about that. Who was rooting for Eliza? So, that's where there was no way the 2 of them weren't coming back. Now you have so much more to pull from, but still, I sit there and I'm like, it's going to suck if they're together, because I do think it hurts them, because everybody knows their threats and they both know they'll turn on each other. And I think that's just a bummer.
Yeah, I think their one season together was perfect. I think Gabby would do very well with Christian. Gabby, I think, does better without Christian than Christian does without Gabby. Now that we're actually saying this, I feel like Christian's going to go on to a new season and be a gigantic threat. Gabby won't seem like one as much.
Well, it could be the whole Sarah Tony thing, except Gabby's so much more of a threat, or more of a perceived threat than Sarah is coming into another season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think we get a lot of returnees from this season. I know we say this every season, and we said this with Ghost Island too, but I think, I don't know, I think Brendan and James are less likely to get back on than Gabby and Christian. I mean, and that's like obviously because Gabby and Christian lasted longer, but for Ghost Island, all the people were pulling back, like the Bradleys and the Brendans and the James and the Michael Yergers, like they didn't last super long. So I think that speaks.
Yeah, and I like Michael, but once you're removed from Ghost Island, I mean, is Michael really in everybody's mind still? You know what I mean? Like that's one of those. And like I look at Gabby and Christian, they'll make it through the winter. They'll make it. I mean, granted, they also had to deal with the summer season for Michael and all of them. But I really think that Gabby and Christian are going to be people that are talked about during 39, during the off season. Whereas, like, has anybody brought up Michael's name since the finale of Ghost Island? Like, honestly, I don't think so.
No.
I'm sure somebody would be like, he was on our hap. Yeah, I know that, but that's not what I mean.
I didn't even know that. Yeah.
You know, but like, I mean, like my parents are like, we really hope Michael wins. And like, they don't care now. You know, but if you went back and you said to them, do you remember like Ryan? They remember Ryan. Like
exactly.
You know, it's kind of crazy. But anyway, so I don't know if you have anything else that you want to say. I'm done with my notes. I finished my notes.
No, I didn't take a ton of notes. Let me look at what profit things we hit today. Did Christian say anything?
I don't know. I have to watch again.
I don't remember either. Davie already found a hidden immunity idol. Oh, Christian got 18 votes. That is a lot.
That counts as more than 10.
That is math, people. Less than 5 votes doesn't matter. Mike got individual immunity. Wow, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people have won individual immunity. That's
and there's
crazy.
Been 7. It was 13, and now we're at final 6.
Wow, that was really quick math. So a different person has won individual immunity every challenge. So I feel like you can't make the argument that Allison or Christian or Kara or whoever you want to use. You can't really make that argument. I feel like it's an argument that recently people have kind of used as just like an excuse to get people out, which if it works, it works. Christian made the jury. The only person to have hugged Jeff has been Allison. Sits out 3 times. 10 confessionals in an episode. I am flabbergasted that Christian has outgotten that.
Nobody on this season has.
No one. I know. I guess that's
we will in the finale.
To happen. Yeah, finale's different. Torch Snuff, no words. We're gonna have to sit on that one for a minute. A lot of people went to 10 plus tribals. I think Angelina, Nick, and Davie might have hit that, but we'll check that later. Christian definitely had a confessional in every episode he was in.
Yeah,
right.
He did.
We don't even need to check that.
No, he did.
I don't know what the episode title was this week. And then
I don't either.
Attends or enjoys 5+ rewards. Did anyone new get that?
No, Angelina's the only one who hasn't gotten it, so it's up to her.
Okay. She's probably won't happen. There aren't many left. Yeah, that's about all I got. We'll have a pretty extensive predictions podcast this weekend. We'll be breaking down most of the possible final 3s. I feel like there's way too many possibilities for us to talk about it. And then it's the finale, and we'll both be in LA. We'll hopefully be meeting a good portion of this cast if they want to talk to us. Just TBD.
They don't.
They everyone hates us. It's fine. But yeah, I guess we'll be back this weekend. I can wrap it up, Phil. Oh, actually, Phil and I weren't sure what to do. We're doing our retrospective podcast probably next week when I'm in LA. We've gotten a lot of suggestions, but we are blanking on them, and we're also lazy. So if anyone has a really good suggestion or a terrible suggestion for a retrospective podcast for our $10 patrons, contact us, post in our Facebook group, tweet at us, Facebook, Gmail, whatever. Contact us and just let us know what it is, because obviously we've gotten a bunch of suggestions, and we're gonna get something good for you guys.
Yeah. So we'll be back on Sunday?
Yeah, we'll pick a date. But yeah, we'll be back on Sunday. In the meantime, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. We gained about 50 followers on YouTube in the past week. So give us another 50. Hit that subscribe button. Give us 5 stars on iTunes. Give us a follow there. For people who listen on iTunes, make sure you audibly do the quotes whenever we say quote unquote, because this is not a week final six. We'll be back probably Sunday morning, Sunday night, TBD, with our finale predictions. And this was going to be a good one because we have no clue what's going on. So we'll see you then. Oh, and become a patron. Please be a patron.
Oh, wait. Yeah, do that.
Yeah, patreon.com/Survivor Specials. We have a really cool $20 patron tier coming up. But saw a bunch of people posted in our Facebook group, so we'll respond to that after this. But yeah, become a patron. It's been super fun, and you can listen to our retrospective podcast as well as our Q&A podcast for the month of December. Happy holidays, y'all.
Bye.